Good afternoon, everybody. This is Van White actually, I'm from Rochester, but actually, as you all know, I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, at the King Center. Thank you all for coming. We got our students in Rochester. I see you on the screen there. Hey, Rochester, say hello. All right, they see us. You see us? We see you. And then, Nick, I see you working on the computer. You gonna read something to us today like you did the last time?
I don't know, maybe.
All right, can I see Hillsborough? Hillsborough, you there? Where are you, Hillsborough? Okay, all right, they're waving to us. I want to tell you all I have some very special guests in the bus with me today. This technology is amazing. This bus is, as you all know, I got to say this because some of these folks don't know this. This bus is over 60 years old, but yet it's equipped with the latest next generation technology. And because of that, all of us on different parts of the country are being connected. But I got some really special guests. I'm going to introduce the first two first. All right, this is my own thing. If you look back here, you see her? See this woman right here? That's my mother. Say hello to Anna White. That's my mother. Say hi, Mom. Say hi, Mom.
Hey, hello. Hi, Mom. How you doing, Mom?
All right, and let me tell you something. My mother is a trailblazer. She's not Rosa Parks, but she's her own kind of trailblazer. One day, I will invite her to your class, and she'll tell you some real stories. But she lives here in Atlanta. And then, I want to introduce you, because, you know, this is my bus. I can do this. I want to introduce you to my big sister, Dee.
Hi, guys.
Everybody wave hi to Dee.
Hey.
I'm sure some of you all have big sisters, so I got to act right today or else I get in trouble. But I have a really, really special guest, and this is Mrs. Harrison. It's Barbara, right? Barbara Harrison. She is from the King Center. Now, before Barbara begins to talk, I wanted to tell you all know this from Rochester because we've had the bus at your school. By the way, that's School Without Walls in Rochester, New York. Okay. You folks from Rochester know this. You folks from Hillsborough will get to know this because we're making our way there. You're our next stop. But she is sitting in the seat that Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat. So it's particularly appropriate, given her work at the King Center, that she begin her talk in that seat, which, by the way, I think you guys in Rochester know, was known as No Man's Land. So, Ms. Harrison is going to tell you a little bit about the King Center, and I'm going to shut up. Ms. Harrison?
Okay, good morning. And I just want to say this.
Good morning.
Okay, it's a great pleasure. I consider this a great honor to be a part of this project. I didn't know anything about this until Mr. White shared with me about the work that he was doing, especially with your schools, and that you were involved and that you started this project in January. So I can say to you, I've been with the King Center over 30 years, and these are the kinds of things that Mrs. Coretta Scott King, who founded the Martin Luther King Center, this is the kind of thing she envisioned. Because as you have started to study, and many of you maybe read, some of you may be more advanced than others to understand about Dr. King's work, and even reading his I Have a Dream speech, you recognize and you see a lot of the things he talked about were very futuristic. He talked about the past, but he also talked about things he dreamed about that would come in the future. And I can actually say these kinds of things are the kinds of things that he was talking about, where you can have people to come. You're talking about diverse groups, and especially young people, to be able to come together and to be able to have times that they can share and learn and exchange, and to be able to do that in a civil way, in a way that's not violent. So I'll share a little bit about you. With the King Center, Ms. King, like I said, she started the King Center in 1968. At the time we started it, it was for education, research, and training. She wanted people to understand that, as many of you are very young, but I think you've seen some of the signs and you've heard during the King holiday, because most of your lives you have been a part of us having a Dr. Martin Luther King holiday. That was not always the case. She had to fight very, very hard along with many others to make sure. But the reason she wanted that to happen, she said she didn't want people just to celebrate Dr. King. She didn't want them just to honor him, but she wanted people to read Dr. King. So you could then understand what he was talking about when he talked about this world where the community. And the beloved community consisted of all kinds of people. Your people in your classroom, just look around. You have people from all different kinds of backgrounds. You have people with different interests. But look at each other's schools in Florida, New York, and all over. You have people that have a vast amount that they can contribute to society. And we need to celebrate those rather than find ways to have isolation and separation. And that's what this bus is. So I am just really amazed. And I'm going to go back. I have to go to a meeting shortly, and I'm going to share about the good work that you all are doing so that they will know you found a way to cross over. And you didn't let barriers of space, not having funds, not being able to necessarily get in your bus, your car, plane, and travel to all those places, but you found a way to connect with each other by using technology. Now, we didn't have this in Dr. King's era, but he was forward-thinking enough that he envisioned a time. He said that people, if they become creative, they can take that creativity and find ways to celebrate what do we have in common. We can look at all the ways we are different, but what about the commonalities? I mean, we have basic things. You come from families. Mr. White just shared with us. He has a mother. He has a sister. I have mother, parents, sister, brother, siblings. You live in communities. We have a lot more in common than we do differences. Why not spend some of that energy learning about those things and see what we can do to really address serious problems? A lot of schools, unfortunately, we come across all the time, where they say in schools they have problems with absenteeism, with a lot of bullying, with people feeling isolated, with people being targeted for whatever differences. Those are things that Mrs. Coretta Scott King said. The young people will have the answer. They have the answer. We have confidence in you, and at the King Center we do. We have constant programs. We have youth initiatives. I'm going to tell you about a few, and the reason we want to invest in the young people is because, again, we know that you have in you the answers that we need to help make this place the world, not just in Rochester, not just in Hillsborough, not just in Florida, all over Washington, D.C. I think you all are going to be looking at other areas that you're going to, not just Atlanta, but you know that there are young people all over the world, in China, in Egypt, on the continent of Africa, in Australia. There are young people that have some of the same concerns and same issues that if you could connect with them, again, those kinds of things could be resolved. You look at what you have in common. You look at the gifts. Because the other thing we believe is each of you are a gift. You're here for a reason. You fought to get here. Many didn't make it. You're sitting in those classrooms, in those seats, because you made it another day. So in you, you have something the world cannot do without. We hope that as you move along, you don't deprive us of that. We hope that you don't take your ball and go home. We hope that you don't drop out. We hope that you don't withdraw. We hope that you see, as you start to read and study about some of the people of the past, that you don't see it as just history, but you see it as, what's my place? You know, what can you contribute? So we have here what we refer to as Student with King. It's an opportunity for young people locally and across the nation, because we have it from school year 2016-17. We have those dates. We have one twice a month, and we have sessions 4 times a month in February and once in May. Now, you can travel to come to this. It's an opportunity. What we do, we invite students to come and have an opportunity to listen to a King family member or an extended King family member, and then people from the movement. And we have a commentator, a moderator. Normally it's a TV personality, local TV personality, or radio personality. They interview these people, but how we do it, we create a situation where it's like you're coming to visit my home. You're coming to my den, my living room. And what we want to share with you are some of the things that happen and stories you can't read in any books. These are the things you don't find written down. These are the things you don't find on the internet. These are the things you don't find in the library books. You hear from people that share with you, why did they get involved and how did it impact their lives? Many of them are older now, but when they got involved, some of them were younger than you are. Why did they do that? What did they see that they could contribute when they were even, some of them, 9 years old, 13 years old, 14 years old? They talk about those things. What made them committed? What made them get involved to feel like even as youngsters, they can make a difference. You get a chance to hear some of their stories. Again, these aren't things you can get in any book. So we invite students to share, talk with them, ask them questions, and be able to kind of get into their heads and ask them suggestions and maybe ideas about some of the things they can do. And then we'll have a family member, either direct King family member or an extended family member that can share personal stories, sometimes humorous things. You see Dr. King a lot of times on clips. Most of the times I know the things you see because I know the things I see. It's a lot of the black and white old reels. You see things of him marching and all of that. All of that was true. But Dr. King also had a humorous side.
Good sense of humor, I heard that. Yeah.
He also had a very human side. So we want you to get to know him from that perspective. He was no different, and we share this. When he was a young person, he wasn't giving I Have a Dream speeches when he was very young. I mean, he used to, with his sister, the same things that siblings had, he had with his sisters, with his brothers, same kinds of things. So he was a very ordinary child in that sense. He became serious as he started to see the injustices and felt like there was something he needed to do. And as he became more committed, is when he then started to get more serious about his work. We also share this, that Dr. King received a C in oratory. They said that he was not a good speaker. Yeah.
What?
Right? And so, again, if he had given up based on a teacher's or an administrator's or somebody's opinion, he may not have done the things he did.
But didn't he graduate from high school, like, I think he was like 16?
He did graduate, but some of that was academic, but not necessarily. It was a program he had doing, during that time, the schools, they needed people to go into the war. And so what they were doing is trying to create a situation, I think Dr. Benjamin Mays, from my understanding, he wanted to see if he could get some of those students early admission to get into school. So they were able to, it wasn't that his grades were so superior that he just went into school. I mean, they weren't that bad, but he was an average student a lot of times. He became very serious and began to really excel once he went to college. He started to get those influences, and he started to see some of the people and do deeper reading. So then he got a commitment. There were things, though, that impacted him as a young person. Because even as a child, he had, when he was, the birth home is here on this property, he had a person that was a good friend of his. He would happen to be white. And in the neighborhood at that time, you had blacks and whites because of where Dr. King lived. So they played together. But it came a time, and he was very young, maybe 9 or so, and the family, the white family, told the white student he couldn't play with him anymore. Now that had an impact on him. He thought about that later on. He also thought about when he was going on trips where he would go and make these speeches, when he was developing himself to become a speaker, that he had made the speech and he was just talking about the promise and the different things and expressing himself in a very good way, and got, very good response, only to have to get on a bus and at that young age experience discrimination and just felt like this wasn't right. So he had little things that happened to him throughout his life that made him say, that's not right, I want to be able to do something about that.
So, I have like a million questions, but I won't do that because I know the students have some questions they want to ask you. Gil or Ivy, is that right? The students want to ask her some questions?
Yeah, no problem. We can go back and forth between classes. We'll trade on and off.
All right.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. Does anybody from here have a question first?
Or comment.
Or comment.
Or a comment, yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Ida has one.
What was Dr. King's legacy?
His legacy is what we are working on now. That's what he left behind is a work that still needs to be worked on. So that's what he's left us. What he left was a blueprint for us how to do it, though. So he left a blueprint that was based in love, that talked about how do you create social change? How do you create, when you see a situation in your school that you know is not right, how do you go about changing that in a way where you're not disrespectful to the administration, the teacher, the person, your community? How do you go about that? So Dr. King left us with many, many ways and methods. That's why we study him. We have a camp, just so you know, for 13-year-olds to 18-year-olds that we're having. It's a 2-week camp that we have in June, and it's every year. You may want to plan to try to come to that camp. is developing leaders, emerging leaders. But what we do is take Dr. King's philosophy, so we pull it out of all the historical and the back in the day. You take that information, read it, and see, how do I apply that to my life now? How do I apply that so in my classroom I know how to deal with the situation before it erupts to violence? How do I deal with that with my sibling, my sister, my brother? How do I deal with that when I have a disagreement or something with my parent? All of these things is dealing with day-to-day situations that you're going to have because you're living. And how do I deal with things in my community? But I deal with it in a nonviolent manner. But I also deal with it that cause a positive result. How do I do that? So his legacy is he left a blueprint for us to look at and to study and to learn more about so that we can do it long before people talk about marching and doing things all over the world. That's great. But what are you doing in your home? What are you doing in your neighborhood to make a difference? What are you doing in your synagogue, your mosque, your church, your temple? What are you doing there to make a difference? So that's what he left behind.
All right, Florida. What you got, Jefferson?
All right, who wants to go? Michaela did have her hand up for a while. All right, go ahead, Michaela.
Hey, Ivy.
Yes.
Why do I think like you all got more students there? Has your class increased in size? What happened?
It did, and Mrs. Harrison and everyone, thank you again for this opportunity. I'm Ms. Washington, and at Jefferson High School, Hillsborough County, we did start, of course, being invited along this, again, wonderful class. We started first semester with only about 17 students, and it was such a great experience, we wanted to be a part of it again, so we did that. Using my African American history course, and the students in this class, they have joined us in learning about civil rights. So originally started with 17, but our class has grown. We have 30 students.
And really, all right.
Okay, we're going to hear from one of our students. Michaela?
Okay, so another question would be, like, it says, does the King Center educate people about other civil rights leaders?
Yes, we absolutely do, because one of the things that we do and have always done, and Dr. King did this, so what we do is emulate him. Dr. King never took everything, said, I started it, I'm the end all, and it's with me. If you notice, what he was always about is developing leadership. And we're reading a book now, and our staff, that we're learning about, so you can understand about different styles of leadership. So with Dr. King, he was always making a place. So what we do is we recognize there were other leaders, there were other people, there were other organizations that went before us, that worked beside us, and that have come after us. So we absolutely talk about and discuss and have put it in context so people understand. Even though you see Dr. King, he did not see himself as elevated above and beyond. He also recognized that what he was doing it because there were so many foot soldiers, and that there were people making the way for him to be able to get up then and to make that speech. They had walked the walk. They had taken those beatings. They had gone to jail. So we talk about all of that so that we share, so people can understand. It doesn't have to be a road by yourself. It is not who's just out front. It's how many do I bring along with me? And it's a lot that can be included in that circle.
We want to go back to Rochester. What you got? Got a good question?
Yeah, no problem.
Thomas, I'm Thomas. I want to know what personally intrigued you into the ideals of Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement as a whole.
Hey, Ms. Harrison, I got to tell you, you talking about developing leaders. That young man, Thomas, I see him in a lot of stuff. He's really involved. So that is one of the future leaders. And I know there's others in that room, too. But I see Thomas at nearly every damn meeting I go to. So Thomas is one of the leaders.
All right.
I'm sorry, Thomas.
All right. So that's a good report, Thomas. So, and I'm sure there are others in the room, like you said. So, but that is. But, so your question to me, okay, I'm sorry. I got lost in all of those accolades. Okay, say it again. And if you can be brief.
I said what personally intrigued you into the ideas of Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement as a whole.
I can tell you what really intrigued me, a couple of things. When I came to the center, Like I said, I came to the center about 30 years ago. And I was not looking for a job. Somebody invited me, and they kept asking me to come and apply for a job. So I eventually came and applied. I was not interested in working at the King Center. I knew very little basic stuff about Dr. Martin Luther King, but not a lot. And so for me, it was just going to be a job, and it was a job I wasn't even interested in. I was just doing it as a favor. I had an opportunity. My interview, believe it or not, was with Dr. King, Martin Luther King Jr.'s sister. She was the vice chair of the Christine King family.
Okay.
She's the only immediate living sibling now. Right. So Dr. Christine King Ferris, I interviewed with her, and the interview went very well to my surprise. I had a job, so I had no intent of getting a job. They offered a job, and I accepted, to my shock. I had no idea. But the thing that was the turning point for me is when I had an opportunity to meet Coretta Scott King also. And what I saw in Miss Coretta Scott King, I think many of you have at least seen her picture so you can recognize her. And people talk about her outward beauty. Mrs. King is stunning. That's with makeup or without. She is a very beautiful person, just naturally. So, but the thing that got me about her was, and that changed me, it started me on this whole change. What I saw on the inside was so outshone. She was beautiful, but the inside, she was a caring person. She was a dedicated person. She was someone that believed, whether she was married to Dr. King or not, that he truly had a purpose and that what he did for the country was needed. So she respected him not just as her husband. You expect a wife to love her husband. But beyond that, she believed in him and his cause. With that belief and with that commitment, I saw in her where she would work all day, the first one at work, the last one to leave, to fly all over the country, get off a plane, and then come to the center at 6:30 at night and stay there till 12 o'clock because she was so committed. Time and time and time again, inviting us into her home. Those were the things that, because then I started to see the real person and got a chance to understand Ms. King was dedicated and committed to peace and civil rights long before she met Dr. King. It was those kinds of things that continued to deepen my belief, because she had such a belief that if we applied what he talked about, not just talk about it, but if we truly studied him and applied it, the world would be a better place. She convinced me. And so that started my kind of change and being open to read more and to understand. I'm a total believer.
So we're going to go back to you, Ivy, but I got to ask this question. Ivy, just let me ask her this question. What's it been like, briefly, because I want to make sure we get to them. What's it been like since she passed away, Miss King? Because you all know Coretta passed away. How long ago was it?
It was 2006, I think it was.
What's it been like? And y'all may have been thinking about asking this question, but I got to know, what's it been like since she's been gone?
Well, she left such a... when someone asked earlier about Dr. King's legacy,
yeah.
Ms. King also left a legacy. So it's been difficult. I really, really miss her presence because it was unique. So it's not something that could be replaced.
Right.
So nobody's tried to replace that. But what we have tried to do is continue what she wanted. This is part of that, believe it or not. Because she would talk about, reaching out, and she really would listen. So when she was in the presence and she wanted to have young people around, because she wanted to hear what you had to say. She wanted to know what you were thinking. She wanted to know, how do you want to contribute? And what can we do to help you do that? So those were the kind of things that she left behind. She wanted to make sure that there was always, like I said, education and training and opportunities for individuals, not to browbeat people, not to make people study Dr. King, but to introduce him in a way that they would want to read about him and that his life would cause them to want to see, how can I make a difference? Not just put him on a pedestal. See Dr. King as, oh, he's great. Oh, he's a great author. Oh, he did all of this. Dr. King, Dr. King, Dr. King. Her thing is, that's great. Where are you in that? I see you in that. I see your possibilities in that. I see you doing some things that we can, again, you have something, because you are here for a reason. You have something, I don't care if nobody else has ever told you, or if everybody overlooks you. You have something in you that you are here and you made it through, because we need that. And what we want to do is encourage you and keep touching you so that if you're a person that's shy, if you're a person that, well, nobody really knows my voice, so people say I don't do this, I don't do that. What we're saying is we see the possibilities. And that's how she was. And so I can actually say that's the legacy. That's what she's left. And I miss her, but her work goes on.
Ivy, you got a question there? And Ivy and Gil, can you keep track of the time? Because I don't have a clock in here. We got all this technology, but I don't have a simple clock. So you guys need to let me know. 11 o'clock.
Okay. So I have a few more questions.
She can take a few more questions.
All right, no problem.
Okay, Joe.
Okay, so my question is, what obstacles has the King Center faced in trying to keep Dr. King's dream alive?
That's a very, very smart question. Glad you asked that. There are a lot of different things. One of the things I can actually say is funding, because people are under the assumption that I guess we have all this money. The King Center has to raise money like any other. We are a non-profit organization. So that means, we don't sell trinkets to make money. Like, we don't have a product that we can sell some books. We do have that as a bookstore and resource center. But that's not our goal. Our goal is to educate and to help educate people so they can be transformed. So to do that, we have to have funds to do it. So I would say funding is always, like any other nonprofit, a key thing that we are always challenged. And then the other thing is to make sure that we remember Dr. King in the right way. And I'm going to use a word that some of you may know and some of you may have to look up and some of you may want to discuss. We want to make sure we don't sanitize Dr. King. We want to make sure we don't make Dr. King something he's not, which, okay, it's like it's popular to follow Dr. King now. When Dr. King died, he was one of the most hated persons in the world. We don't want to lose sight of that. And the reason is because he wanted change, and he wanted to do it in an unorthodox way, without violence. And we don't ever want to lose sight of that. So he challenged the status quo. And so at the time, that wasn't popular. It's popular now. But what we want to make sure is that people read Dr. King, not just what somebody said about him, because people can rewrite history. But if you read his words, you get to know him. So you don't have to have someone to tell you about him and start making their agenda his agenda. That's what we mean. So we work to make sure that people are reading Dr. King so they can get in his mind. So you don't have to tell somebody read and say Dr. King believed in this or Dr. King did this. And if you read it, you would say, no, that's not what Dr. King believed.
All right. Rochester, can you take one more question?
Mm-hmm.
All right, we got one more in Rochester. Gil, you there?
Yeah, we're here.
Yeah. Is the King Center advocating for civil rights on the national level, such as the water crisis in Flint or other things like the things that Black Lives Matter are fighting?
Yes. And just so you know, and when the reason I can answer that, because we look at it, and I'm glad you said that because it brings a point. In terms of the King Center, we're international, so we're looking at things on an international scope. We look at where we live, but we also recognize, I think I said this before, that the things that are happening here are happening all over. Some of you may know we went to Ferguson. We did that, so we went so that we could talk and discuss and work with several different groups in terms of nonviolence. There was violence there, but we wanted to get to this part where we could bring people together, so not the shouting, not all of that, but to see, after the aftermath of this, we will all pull out. The media will leave. You all have to live here. How are you going to do that? And so in Flint, the same thing. And in New York, in all these different places, there have been things popping up. The King Center, we don't go running, we don't grab a mic, run out, this is where we are, this is what we're doing. But what we are available, so we can work with communities. Because what we want to do is build a beloved community so that when the next story happens and everybody leaves, the press is gone. It's no longer popular. It's no longer on any social media. Okay, those people are left there and shattered with all of that fighting and misunderstanding and the turbulence. It's still there. How are they, what tools and skills do they have to be able to deal with that once the spotlight leaves? So all over the country and internationally, yes, we are involved in those things.
Now, folks, Ms. Harrison's got to go. She's got to help some other folks understand what the King Center is about. But listen, I had an idea before we even got started. We're going to, after we go to Hillsborough, I got to bring the bus back to Rochester. I'm coming through the King Center again. So hopefully you can have some additional opportunity to talk to her. Gil and Ivy, what time is your class over?
11:15. For me, it's 20 after.
20 after? And what time is it now?
It is currently 11:05.
I tell you what, Ms. Harrison's got to go, but I'd like to stay here and continue to talk about this for at least a few more minutes. Is that okay? Why don't we give Ms. Harrison a round of applause?
Thank you very much.
I want to say one other thing before she goes. I've never met anybody who had spent any time with Coretta or Dr. King. And just listening to her, someone who knew her for 30 years, I don't know how y'all felt, but it gave me chills just to be this close to somebody who knew somebody so great. So one more round of applause for her. And we thank her for her service.
And I'm going to leave you some materials here that you can give out. Some of those programs that we talked about are available for young people all over the country. So I hope you will go on our site, thekingcenter.org, and learn about our camp. We have a 2-week camp that we have every year, and we have ongoing youth initiatives. I hope that some of you will plan to come and be a part of that so that you can make the difference in your communities and give back to society.
Well, I'm going to Florida, and I'm going to visit those students, and I will give them this literature that you have given to me. We're going to bring that to you in Florida in a couple days. So, again, thank you very much, Ms. Harrison. All right. Hey, can I get a hug from the lady?
Sure can.
Right. So listen, guys. I know it wasn't enough time, but I want to be honest with you. I heard you all talk when I was in Washington. Said you didn't have enough time to ask questions. Let's be honest. Was there more time for that this time? Was the format? Because I know that was one of your concerns. The speakers did too much speaking. Did you feel you had more of an opportunity to do that?
Yes. Yeah, I know.
Since we're still here, and we have another speaker in Florida. What's his name, Mr.
Clarence Fort. Yes.
We should continually improve this. What would you do differently for the next speaker?
Van, I think one thing that was very helpful was that we had that opportunity at the end of last week to kind of discuss what direction we were going to go in with the questioning.
Yes.
And we had some background. What might be helpful to Ivy and Van is if tomorrow we have a class, we could kind of do the same thing, talk a little bit, brainstorm what we're going to hear or what we think we're going to hear, and kind of formulate our questioning based on that. It seems to work much smoother that way.
Okay. Well, our class is with this gentleman is Thursday, right? So you think you're going to meet tomorrow?
We can meet tomorrow. I mean, I have to ask Ivy though. I don't know about her schedule this week.
No, that will work. Whatever is needed, we will be here.
Okay.
Because I think you're right. I mean, I think you guys had questions and she was. I didn't know whether she was going to be able to respond to the tough questions that I knew you all were going to ask her, but she did a really good job. I don't know. What did you young people think?
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. And I think we're going to get the same thing from your speaker. Can you tell me something about the guy from Florida? What's he about?
Absolutely. And then what I can also do, since we're meeting tomorrow, I can additional links that I found that gives a little background so the students and I can use when we're planning tomorrow. But just a quick overview. Mr. Fort organized the 1960s local Woolworth sit-ins right here in Tampa, Florida. He organized using students from Blake High School and also Middleton High School in Tampa, Florida, which is a school where it was predominantly African American only during that time. In addition to the sit-ins that he created and was organized, he was able to speak, at least hear, Dr. Martin Luther King speak in Atlanta. He was a part of that. And he also is a retired deputy, African-American deputy here in Tampa, Florida as well. So we'll be able to talk to him and ask questions about his experience just organizing when he was 20 years old, that sit-in locally. Plus we'll be able to even find out further what were his experiences as an officer in his, he did that for over 30 years. So what did he experience working with some of his obstacles? And I'm sure he faced many as well. So again, I'll pull additional information so that we'll have that. Mr. Fort is going to bring with him a lot of props, he said. He has pictures from the actual movement. He said he has his own stands to display and to show as well. So he's going to be here at 9:30. He says he likes to be early so that he can get dope together. And again, I asked if there's anything we need to provide. He said he brings everything himself, so he's ready to go.
So let's talk about the logistics of this.
Sure.
There's about 26 seats on this bus.
Yes.
If you take away the telepresence machine. So how are we going to do this? Are we going to be, am I going to be in the bus? Are some people going to be in the bus with me? Are we going to be in your classroom? How are we going to do this?
Okay, so, and actually one of our administrators was going to join in a moment to share the new information with our students, but they'll hear it from me as well. So what we're going to do, we're going to have our classroom, this room open, so that if there is an overflow of people, they'll be able to connect here. The bus will be parked in the front of the school near our main office area, so that as visitors are needing maybe water and just coming in and out, they can do that. There'll be a tent on the outside of the bus to accommodate with additional seating on the outside for those who may need the overflow there as well. There'll be students on the bus. I'll be on the bus with you, and then of course if there isn't a room for all of us, we do have seating for everyone else to accommodate them as well.
And Mr. Ford will be on the bus with us, or will he be in the classroom?
We would like him on the bus, but we will also have his display set up in the classroom if we can. Anything that he can just bring, if something can be shown on the bus, we will, but he made it as though he has a lot of material. So we're going to find a place here for him to be able to display those things so that students can walk through even after the class itself to see what he has.
Sounds like you all got this all thought through. That's good. That's good for us. Listen, we're getting ready to sign out. Gil, did you want to add anything before we, so Ivy and crew, I'll see you all in a couple days.
Yeah.
God willing. Gil, do you want to add anything before we sign out here?
I just want to note that the further along we go with this, the smoother it goes. Vance, we want to thank you for taking the time to do this for us. I've never seen anything like this. I think both classes are unbelievable. The speakers have been great, and I really look forward to Thursday, so thank you very much to everyone. Really appreciate it.
All right, everybody be safe. Tom, you're behind the camera somewhere. You're going to cut us off here, right? You hear me, Tom? Todd? All right, listen, guys. I'll see you Thursday.
Okay.
Be safe.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Hey.